born ready. This is on. Okay. In the great satirical writings of the Enlightenment philosopher Voltaire, a book entitled Candide explores the greatest perils of life. Towards the end of the fiction, the characters recognize the need to cultivate their gardens. This is a philosophy book, so nothing in one can ever be taken literally. So this garden they're talking about can be applied to a multitude of practices. It's important to cultivate the relationships in our lives, and it's important to cultivate our minds and our spheres of influence. My name is Lora Taylor, and it's important to me that I never forget the necessity to cultivate my variety of gardens. A little bit about me. I'm a straightforward person with a passion for getting tasks done. I'm hard-headed with a conviction to help people while loving them. My faith in Jesus Christ is essential to me, and as Ecclesiastes 9:10 says, whatever activity in which you engage, do it with all your ability. I'm committed and focused, and I know that I can achieve the goals that I plan for my future. One of these goals is attending my dream college in New York City, called the King's College, while majoring in business and taking classes on Wall Street. After that, I just want to help people in whatever way I best know how. Some of my other hobbies include playing French horn, guitar, piano, and ukulele, and I hope to continue playing music in my musical career after high school. I enjoy reading and the hard books I said earlier, in an effort to understand the world and people more meaningfully. I love how everyone's different, and I'm constantly seeking ways to better understand them. So this next year, I will be studying leadership consultation. You're like, what is that? Leadership consultation? Okay. This topic encases going out into new workplaces and essentially helping companies run more efficiently and effectively. In ISM, I desire to learn more about leadership and how to pinpoint problems and fix them. Consulting has been an interest to me since I was a kid, because my dad's a consultant, so he'd always tell me stories, and he was my dad, so I thought he was a superhero. And then the leadership aspect came into play when I went through a series of trainings in band. And the trainings weren't necessarily very worthwhile, but the concept of putting leadership into any specific field was very interesting to me. Also, I've been appalled by the fact that so many people in this day and age hate going to work. And so by being a consultant, it's possible to encourage workplace enjoyment and engagement. And this job showcases both people's skills and public speaking, so it automatically was interesting to me. Which leads me to my quote by Niccolò Machiavelli, and he said, "There's nothing more difficult to take in hand, more perilous to conduct, or more uncertain in its success than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things." I chose this as my quote, not because I desire to simply be in the world, both the business and life in general, but because I plan on changing it for the better. And this isn't going to be easy, because nothing that's easy is worthwhile. At the beginning of the year, I had to conduct a series of informational interviews. My first one was with Mr. Clint Grider. Mr. Grider works at a company called Oxano, who consults for churches, which was very interesting to me because I never recognized that, crossing that gap of consulting into that of religion. And it was very cool to find out how you can apply return on investment, which is how the service is helpful, to something like the church. After that, I interviewed Mr. Tom Ziegler of the Ziegler Corporation, which was a huge deal. He's the CEO of the company, because as I was growing up, my parents would always talk to me about Zig Ziglar, because my dad does the whole consulting, and so he was like this big guy in my mind. And when I showed up to his office, there were 2 dogs there, and it was very laid back, and it was an incredibly fun interview. We talked a lot about personality types and how to communicate with a bunch of different generations, because it's important to know your audience. After that, I met with Ms. Tanya Bradford of Towers Watson. We talked about the experiences in the workplace, and I was very frank with her in asking my questions about what it truly means to be a woman in the workplace. Because you always see those old black and white films of the boss with the cigar, and the women are not necessarily treated as equally. And thankfully, I found out that is not the case. They are treated just as equally in every aspect except maybe international relations, because there are still some countries around the world who do not view women as equal to men. And my last interview was with Miss Carly Chapman. We met at a Starbucks down in Richardson. It was very busy in the traffic and stressful, but it was fun. And so she also works at Towers Watson, and our conversation was once again centered on the different personality types, which is sort of a trend that I'll come back to later. She was talking about how the different personality types and generations can really affect a consulting experience, which is why it's so important to know your field and know what you're doing. My first interview was Mr. Mike Rodriguez, who is now also my mentor. Mike Rodriguez works at Mike Rodriguez International, and with the title of entrepreneur, leadership trainer, motivational speaker, and consultant, he most specifically fit what I was hoping to find for my study this year. Most of you know him because he was a showcase speaker at the symposium. So our personalities work really well together, and I'm so excited to learn as much as I can from him this year. Through the process of finding a mentor and doing all these interviews, I had to focus on putting firsthand research for my field into play, so I was well informed for these interviews. To begin with, it was started with the career outlook assessment. I found out that consulting has a 19% increase for the future of the career, which is also helpful because around the world, as I'm looking for a job, there most likely will be one for me. After establishing this, the next thing I looked into was the relationship between a project manager and consultant, or a business analyst. Through this, I learned that when working well together, a project manager and consultant can skyrocket the success level of a project. Through this, it was also obvious to me that people need to recognize to do their own job and not get caught up in doing others' work for them. Because if a project manager is trying to do the job of both the project manager and consultant, that's going to cause a lot of tension. All right, so next we talked about how to be, I researched how to be a thought leader. So when the inside workings of a company are successful, when you figure out the relationship between the project manager and business analyst, it becomes important to focus on the macro, how to get work. Because people usually seek out consulting firms, but sometimes you have to become a salesman for your work. And so it's important to have an edge on your competitors, and you can do this by becoming a thought leader. So by a firm presenting themselves as knowledgeable and innovative, consulting companies can receive up to a 2,000% return on investment. The executives of firms need to be published and write how-to articles and seminars to show just how intelligent and well-informed they are. This improves the ability of a consulting firm to be effective because they have incredibly strong trust with their clients. After this, I looked into the philosophy of Mr. Zig Ziglar right before I had my interview with him. The article I analyzed spoke about the 8 things that people needed to be content, which included being healthy, happy, prosperous, secure, having friends, a peace of mind, and good relationships and hope. Now raise your hand if you have at ever one point in your life felt like you had all of these things. So that was what I was thinking as I was going through reading this article. And how do you inspire these things in people as you are trying to lead them? It's not necessarily not necessarily possible to make someone happy, as mindset is a personal decision, but situation often determines mindset. So when you have control over a situation, you ultimately have control over the mindset. It sounds like something very challenging, and I look forward to doing more research on it in the future. I also had the opportunity to attend a variety of college classes where I took some hands-on research. In a class I attended dedicated to business ethics and responsibility, we talked about corporate governance and stockholder rights. From a general business background, it was interesting to hear the number of people that are involved in a company outside of the employees and clients. After that, in the leadership class I attended, we spoke about servant leadership and in what outlets it was effective. It was known to me through this that it can work in both small and large outlets, such as with Chick-fil-A being one of the largest companies that practices servant leadership, but also in the small, just with small businesses and entrepreneurial firms. My last area of research stemmed from many of the informational interviews I had with personality types, and under the mentorship of Mr. Rodriguez, much of what we have spent our initial meeting speaking about has been personality types and how they affect a situation. His personality descriptor of choice is the DISC personality chart, which encompasses the dominant, influencer, steady, and compliant types. So up on the screen you can see some of the direct traits of each. And so this is where it becomes important to recognize your audience. Each one has some positive. The dominant personality type is often very good in the leadership position because they have respect, but they also have the fear of coming across as bossy. The influential type is fun to be around, but they can also be irritating because they're always so bubbly and happy. The steady type is always there. They're always going to want to know the personality, not the personality. They're always going to want to know everyone's attitude about an event, which can make them slow to get stuff done. And then the compliant type is incredibly analytic. They're going to want to know all the details, which makes them well-informed, but also makes them calculating because they have to think through everything to feel confident in what they're doing. So by taking these into play and applying them to the workplace, it makes it easier to understand the relationships between people as they're working. When you have a dominant and a steady type working together, the dominant can also almost blindside the steady because they become scared of the bossy type because they just want to please everyone. Mr. Rodriguez and I have been going through how each is effective and how they work together and the best way to approach any specific situation. Which brings me to my original work. Oh, it's kind of dark. I'll fix that. Okay, through a culmination of this research that I did at the beginning of the year, I began to pursue the next step. This year for my original work, I'll be going more in depth in my research about personality types, and after creating a list of the traits that are specific to each, it will become possible to make a comprehensive method to best approach any specific personality in the business place. This has the ability to make a company run more smoothly, and I look forward to seeing all the directions I can go with it. Ronald Reagan said, "There are no great limits to growth because there are no limits to human intelligence, imagination, and wonder." This year I'm excited to push my boundaries as a young professional and more importantly as a person. By loving God and loving people, I'm ready to set out on a mission and accomplish amazing goals. Thank you for your time.